Hello and welcome to this week's video. I am Ashley Ruth Sterling. You can call me Ashley Ruth, and I am creative. On this channel, I take you with me on my creative adventures. This week I had something else planned, but like everyone else around the world, I became very invested in the Artemis II Space Mission. It was just so exciting and inspiring. In this week's video, I thought I would take you along while I paint the moon. I started painting the moon, and then eventually I started kind of painting Earth on the other side. So you'll see that. And then about halfway through the video, I will bring you along and show you how you could paint your own moons, like what paints you could use to get a nice effect. I'll kind of chat along as we go. This is my watercolor palette that you see here. I call it my comfiest, coziest watercolor palette, and it's got my favorite collection of handmade watercolors in it. I've got my paintbrush, I've got my water, and a circle tin to make a circle shape. I tried it without a tin first, trying to make a circle, and normally I'm okay with wonky lines, but for a moon, it's kind of nice to have a solid circle. When I add in my wet paint to the wet paper, it moves around a lot, and the water really does the magic here. I love it. It's such an exploration. Like, I felt like an adventurer while I was sitting and listening to the astronauts. I'd really like it if you've been watching the NASA live streams or different parts of the mission. I'd love to know what stuck out to you, so if you want to write down in the comments below, that'd be awesome, and it would be really cool to learn from each other. One of the cool things that they've said along the way is that when they're able to talk to each other and observe the moon with each other, they learn more. I'm going to insert some clips from NASA. It's public domain, so it shouldn't be a problem putting them here. There'll be ones probably that you've heard before. These were really what I was thinking about when I was doing this painting.
Integrity crew. On April 15th, 1970, during the Apollo 13 mission, 3 explorers set the record for the farthest distance humans have ever traveled from our home planet.
Yeah, from the cabin of Integrity here, as we surpass the furthest distance humans have ever traveled from planet Earth, we do so in honoring the extraordinary efforts and feats of our predecessors in human space exploration. We will continue our journey even further into space before Mother Earth succeeds in pulling us back to everything that we hold dear. But we most importantly choose this moment to challenge this generation and the next to make sure this record is not long-lived.
You look amazing. You look beautiful. And from up here, you also look like one thing. You know, Homo sapiens is all of us, no matter where you're from or what you look like. We're all one people. And so, this mission, one of the things that's amazing about being around and just being an astronaut, serving our countries at this time is that we get to give ourselves a mission that we can hold on to say, hey, look at what we did for the rest of our life together and use all the strengths to accomplish something great. And so this mission will give us one of those that we all can remember and hold on to for the rest of our days.
When we have that perspective and we compare it to our home of the Earth, it just reminds us how much we have in common. Everything we need, the Earth provides, and that in and of itself is somewhat of a miracle.
Integrity Houston, you are 6 minutes from your 40-minute lunar flyby LOS. From all of us, it's a privilege to witness you carrying the fire past our farthest reach. Thank you. Godspeed.
And as we go on this journey, thinking about the NASA mission to explore the unknown in air and space, to innovate for the benefit of humanity, and to inspire the world through discovery. And as you've gone along on this journey with us, hopefully we're doing just those things. close to the nearest point to the moon and farthest point from Earth, as we continue to unlock the mysteries of the cosmos, I would like to remind you of one of the most important mysteries there on Earth, and that's love. Christ said in response to what was the greatest command, that it was to love God with all that you are. And he also, being a great teacher, said the second is equal to it, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself. And so, as we prepare to go out of radio communication, we're still to feel your love from Earth, and to all of you down there on Earth and around Earth, we love you from the moon.
So yesterday I made this. Last night going to sleep, I was like, I bet I could show them a fun and satisfying way to do this. All you're going to need is a paintbrush. I'm just using a number 5 round brush. Water, paper. I'm using the Moleskine watercolor sketchbook. And I've got 5 paints here. The only 2 that you should focus on are these 2. It's an ultramarine blue and a burnt sienna. Make sure on the tube it has the pigment number PB29 because PB29 granulates. Burnt siennas tend to granulate as well. Other ones I have to try are these fancy ones, Buff Titanium and Lunar Black by Daniel Smith. I've also got a white, then just a pencil to outline your moons and circles to make the moons. So I've got a glue stick, I've got some washi tape to make a circle, and then I've got these palettes if I feel like I want different sizes. I'm using some water-soluble pencils today. The moon has lots of textures on it. That's why I think it's a good idea to use a granulating paint. We know that when we mix opposites on the color wheel, we get a gray or a brown. And I just think that's really, really cool. While I'm waiting for that to dry, let's draw some circles. I think I'm gonna do that in the middle. I just wanna experiment with some different watercolor pencils. So you see the PB29 and PR101 making this crazy array of browns and blacks and muted purples. And that's just a small sample of what that combo will make. And then down here is the Buff Titanium and Lunar Black. Look at the granulation. The particles separate. Some of it settles to the ground, some of it rises to the top with the water. We've got circles, we've got a small amount of supplies, and we're ready to paint. We've tested out our mixes to see what might happen. I'm just gonna do random mixes and variations because this is about having fun, relaxing with color, and meditating and being mindful of how awesome it is to live on Earth. Mixing ultramarine blue and burnt sienna first. And I'm just going in, filling in my circle. You can notice how when the wet paint hits the watercolor pencil, how it makes a dark line and also sometimes creates a cool effect. And if I add more water, to where there's more pigment. It kind of moves around. It reminds me of the moon. It like honestly does, the way there's the textures and then like kind of this atmospheric nature of it. You can play around with the water for ages. And you see how where there's more water versus where there's less water, it sometimes pushes that paint up with the water and creates, they're called cauliflowers. And I just think they're really neat textures. So I'll just keep playing around with my ultramarine and burnt sienna mixture. That's a nice warm black. I put hearts in some of these, and on other ones I'm gonna make hearts by lifting out the paint with my paintbrush once it's more dry. In the video you saw before, I did a mixture of techniques because I kind of saw a heart form as I went, and that's kind of what told me where the heart would go. I just dabbed pigment around where I thought the heart would be and then lifted out when it got a little too out of control. Look how pretty that is. See, the texture of the paper allows some of the paint particles to go down into the paper, and that's what creates those dots and textures. All right, let's keep going. Here maybe I can just make a heart with my paintbrush and fill in around it. Sorry if you can hear the washing machine. I've just realized that it's on the finishing cycle of it. I hope you can get an idea of just how relaxing this activity is. I just love playing around with color mixtures. It really does feel magical, and I know I will say this a lot, but it feels like an exploration. You're discovering things along the way as you play without worrying about getting things wrong. This will not be perfect by other people's standards, and it shouldn't be, because it's play and exploration. Sometimes when I have it a little bit dry, I'll splash some clean water on it, so this one might look cool. And where the water has splashed, it gets a little bit of a texture. And sometimes I just get carried away. And then when I get splatters other places, I just kind of keep splattering. I think it looks really cool. And if you get out of the lines or make marks like I did here, it kind of helps those blend in. I want to play around with adding white to these now. Makes it more pastel-y. That's really pretty. I'll go down here. I like it. And it still is doing that granulating effect. So if you like that, maybe go and buy a tube of, this is Winsor Newton Designer's Gouache in permanent white, I think. That's cool. If you just dab in some white, looks like moon craters. What if I add some cleanish water? That's really fun. And make a cooler version. I think this moon wants to be that color. It's like a purpley muted blue. It looks really cool, the paint hitting that Art Graph 6B. This is so relaxing, I keep forgetting that I'm filming. You just really get lost in it. And you can play around for ages. Like the one that I did yesterday, I played around with for so long and I felt super relaxed after. I kind of want to play with the buff titanium as well. If I mix in our main two and then add in buff titanium. Oh, that's pretty. So it's obviously warmer than if I had added the white. And that's pretty. It's like a French gray. I'm going to try and make a more purpley mix, which means just a tiny bit of the burnt sienna and a lot more of the ultramarine. For the big moon, I'll play around with the buff titanium and lunar black. If you just want to buy one fancy tube of paint and you like the granulating effects, the like textures, then grabbing a tube of this lunar black or any pigment PBK11 granulates heavily, especially the more water you add. And you'll see that pretty quickly here. But yeah, if you have a PBK11 paint mixed with any other paint, it will make really cool textures. You can see it really heavily already. It just separates almost instantly. How cool is that? So I'm adding a lot of water to parts of this. Might leave some parts white. Kind of looks cool. I'm just playing around. Let's splash. And maybe one with some white added to that mix. Now let's add some hearts in. It's kind of dry here, so I'll just put a heart there. That one's more subtle. I'm going to let this dry a little bit and I'll come back and lift out a couple of hearts. It's been about 5-10 minutes and I've let the paints dry a little bit. I just want to show you how you can lift out paint. I just got some toilet paper here so I can dab off some water You don't want too wet of a brush, but you do need it to be a little bit damp. And I'll just go here and start to pull out some of that paint. This is called the lifting technique, and it's one of my favorites. I just think that's so cool. So sometimes, because I don't normally use white in watercolor, I will just lift out the paint to get highlights. And depending on the paint pigments, you'll get different liftabilities, but both burnt sienna and ultramarine are fairly easy to lift. Yeah, so that's how you do it. I think with moons, it would be really fun to lift out some craters. Just like a little bit of slightly wet brush. If I get too much pigment on my brush, I just dab it off and put it there on my toilet paper. Nothing fancy. This one won't be very visible because it's quite light, but I could go in, taking it out and dabbing it if there's too much water. Just a little subtle heart there. I wanted to also show you before I let you go that you can go back in once it's dried and darken places if you want to. Because it's building on the first coat of paint, it's darker. And I can darken other areas. For example, if I want this heart to be more defined, I could go around the outside. Just like that. This is great for shading and making more three-dimensional shapes, and you could even start to make crescent moons with that. I'll just finish by putting a love heart on my big moon here. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'm a strong believer that art is a form of peaceful resistance when the rest of the world, just doesn't make sense to you. Art is a great place to spend your time and put a little bit of love and care into the world. So that's what I'm doing here while I think about how awesome it is that humans have the capacity for love and compassion. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up and subscribe if this kind of stuff is interesting for you. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.